All right, so today's day 20, and I was thinking what I could talk about, specifically based on recent books that I've read, because that's what I do. And then it came to my mind that I've recently read American Psycho, and I was recently talking about billionaires and specifically why they tend to use ideologies and philosophical frameworks. And American Psycho fits another topic that I did want to talk about. So, if you haven't read it, American Psycho is essentially a book which revolves around the character Patrick Bateman, who works at a Wall Street company called Pierce and Pierce, I believe, and he acts as a merger and acquisition slash stockbroker. And if you've seen the film, you know that Patrick Bateman is portrayed as a violent individual, which in the book is even worse, but we'll just leave it at that. And the book and the film, they both end with Patrick Bateman killing dozens of people, admitting the crimes that he did, but he's never punished for it. That's a short overview, but I'm not like I did not prepare the talk, the unofficial TED talk about Patrick Bateman, but rather about how in the book, because I don't think you see it in the film well, how in the book certain tastes create social classes. So that's what I'd be like, that's what I'll be talking about. So to set a differentiation between the billionaire thing, the billionaire thing was mainly about reading and kind of knowledge capital that you accumulate while you're reading books and works. Patrick Bateman and American Psycho in general is kind of like a portrayal about the social capital, right? Even the cultural capital, because social and cultural capital are not necessarily acquired by reading works. You need to have social interaction for that. And in American Psycho, you see pretty well that the whole circle of Patrick Bateman, they're all the top 1% of earners, probably in the United States. They all create a circle in which they are proficient in talking about brands, for instance, clothing brands, art. They talk about vacations in Europe. They talk about certain places to visit in Italy for skiing. So all this social and cultural capital, I'm not finding a word that encompasses both, so I'll just say capital from now on. All this capital that they have makes them a different group. And this is exactly what is actually happening with the elites, essentially with rich people. They see themselves as different because they know what to wear, where to go out, where to eat, what vacations to take, where to do them, what to do there. And you see it still because average people, you know, there is a desire to imitate rich people, right? You see it by buying luxury cars, even if you cannot afford it, by buying luxury clothing, again, which you can't really afford, but you're doing that while the really rich people, they're not wearing Gucci and Louis Vuitton anymore, right? They moved on. And because they always move on with the tastes, the normal people, they cannot catch up with the capital that they're accumulating because they are in a certain circle, because they need to break in to have access to the capital. And apparently, there's actually, or like there are several books written about this phenomenon by the French, I think, philosopher Pierre Bourdieu. Like, I haven't read his works, but apparently that's what they're all about. How certain social classes, specifically the higher you get, create a sense of class divide by knowing more about things that we see as irrelevant, right? Because again, it's the same thing with billionaires using ideologies. We are taught that, you should be studying things that bring you money, which in a sense is not wrong, right? Like you need to pay your bills, but we don't, take time to reflect on certain things that we like to know, right? I generally think that most people, they're interested in history. They're actually interested in learning more about different countries. And that's essentially what richer or rich people do. They take time or they create time frames where they can dive deeper into these topics. Because if you're working 9 to 5, what are the chances that you'll get home and you actually read and accumulate social and cultural capital that you can use later on? Chances are like zero. You're exhausted. Maybe you have kids to take care of. You know the drill. And I think Bourdieu actually makes the claim that if you are born into a certain class, you not only inherit money, right? But you also inherit this capital, which is exclusive. You cannot just break into these circles. Me, as a normal earner, I cannot break into Elon Musk's circle. But what I can do is try to understand what they're reading. Maybe develop a certain cultural and social capital. But that's essentially all we can do. And I think that's all I have to say. By the way, if you haven't read American Psycho, personally, I think you should be reading it. There is more to the book than the social elite. I just picked it because it fit well with what I had in mind. But you can talk way more about the book. Um, Patrick Bateman as a character is interesting, and if you have seen the movie, Christian Bale portrays him so well. It's like it's crazy. So yeah, if you have time, read the book, watch the book. It does give you a sense of why I think cultural knowledge and social knowledge or capital is just as important as the hard skills that we learn.